it on.
I got it green light. See, I did my part. Now, those of you that want to be in the interactive part of the lesson need to move forward. And those of you that would prefer just to be in the observer role may stay where you're at.
No. Everybody needs to move forward. You never give a choice.
You see the difference between the extrovert and the introvert? I prefer to stay where y'all are. But since I'm up here, y'all might as well come up here too. Okay, we've got a little video we're going to start with. That hopefully will set the whole mood for talking about parenting.
It's a parent rap, y'all. We may spend most of our time chasing toddlers down, but we still know how to rock the hizzle.
I don't even know what you just said.
We used to be cool. Back in the day, back on the block, watching PG-13 movies, staying up way after dark. Then we had a couple shorties, and now we're really flossy. Cause now we be rolling with our own little posse in the minivan or in our little wagon. Let me throw it to moms, cause the little one is sagging.
I used to look it up, I used to dress real shoe. Now I accessorize and food that's already been chewed. And that's alright. I make the step back look good when I'm walking through the mall, trying to wrangle my groove. My PB&Js will set your world on fire. I can make you mac and cheese blindfolded on a wire. I'm wiping the doo-doo, kissing the boo-boos, got them eyes in the back of my head. I see all you do. Using your full name so you know I can play it. And that's why all my kiddos, they keep saying,
Mom, she's the bomb. Rocking all night till the break of dawn. Cooking her peas so I grow up strong. Got my second seat belt with the crash head on.
Dad, he's the man. Working real hard to support the clan. Traded his Porsche for an old sedan. Raising those brows if we get out of hand.
When it comes to Candyland, I'm a stone cold player. Helping out with the homework, I'm an algebra slayer. Wrestle car seats into place without spilling the mud. If I touch you in at night, you'll be as snug as a bug. Then I'm off in the morning to make that cheese. You may not know this yet, but it doesn't grow on trees. Now mama, take it please. What? Take.
I'm dropping diamonds like a hot potty, trading on my tops. Washing all the pins and pots, tying little shoes and knots. Giving notes to your brain like if your friendship off the train. You don't have to do the same, now get your toys out of the brain. I'm cleaning every fill, cutting coupons like a bill. If you need rumors of skill, now you know we are for real. You don't think our rhymes are ill, boy? Then you're grinding for a mill.
Mom, she's legit. Making us chill when we pitch a fit. Telling us to share and never to hit. If you can't say something nice, put a sock in it.
Dad, he's the guy. Never gets tired of playing I spy. The constant barrage of kids asking why. And he always pretends he needs another tie.
You know money doesn't grow on trees. Why buy the cow if the milk is free? This won't hurt you as much as it hurts me. If you want dessert, eat another veggie. Close that door, you were born in a stable. Sit up straight and kiss your enemy. Close your mouth when you chew. Get your elbows off the table. Mom and dad at the ear, check it. That's the label.
It's the parent rap, y'all.
And it's a parent.
We're great parents. Mom and dad in the house.
Mom and daddy own the house. Mom and daddy need to clean the house.
Keep your hands to yourself, boy. Don't make me stop this beat. I'll do it. I'll pull this beat right over.
Does it feel like any of y'all's life? Okay, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, well, we're glad you're here too. But you've probably already survived all this. We want to take a quick poll and see exactly where our audience is at. How many of you have children that are 6 years old or younger? Whoa, a bunch of you. How many of you have children that are 12 years old or younger? Okay. How many of you have children that are 18 years old or younger? Okay, how many of you have children that are over 18? Wow, we've got the whole cross-section of parenting here. It's going to be great. Say anything?
Sure, what would you like me to say? We're glad that you're here tonight. We're glad that you came. We hope we give you something that you take away that you can actually use, because it's our job not just to talk about how kids can be kids and how kids grow up and how as parents you got stuff to do, but that it makes a difference for you. So we figured it was a natural congregation of parents with all those little ones back there, so we figured we could give you a few hints along the way. So tonight we're going to really just start with parents. I'm going to ask a few questions.
Like, what is a parent? That's what we're going to look at first part. And then what is parenting, the second part tonight. And we are in two parts. And in the middle is the best part of our presentation, snack time. They're supposed to have snacks for us back to back, and when we see that they've properly prepared them, we will lead you back there.
Because we said it's not fair for just the kids to get the cookies and the Kool-Aid. You get some too. But rumor has it might even be salsa and chips.
I hadn't heard that.
Rumor, just rumor.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it might be better than a cookie and Kool-Aid. Now, I didn't hear anybody think better than Kool-Aid, but, you know, salsa and chips, right?
Yeah, I'm with that. Okay, we wanted to start with a thought question.
What's your thought question? I'll go with it. There you go.
Based upon your personal Bible study, who would you say is the best example of a parent in the Bible? This is the interactive part. You can actually answer. Mary.
Mary.
Okay.
I said Mary first. Mary. Why Mary? What made her a good parent?
Jacob, he was so obedient and wise and loved God that he even almost sacrificed his own son.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Are we gonna get, what about Mary? Why Mary? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But then she was able to understand that she was going to have to let go.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to have his own purpose. And we have to do the same thing. We have to let them make mistakes and grow up, and it's really hard.
Yes, it is. I said Joseph because Joseph did his job, and then you don't hear anything else about him, so he must have been awesome.
Mary's husband, Joseph.
Yeah, Mary's husband, Joseph.
Joseph T.
Joseph, number 2. Joseph 1, oh no. Had a good coat, but was he good?
A few years ago, I was about to present something like this to a congregation, a seminar on parenting. And I thought it would be useful if I just go through the Bible and pick out all of the great examples of parents. And that would be our seminar. We'd just study all these great examples of parents. Yeah, I had to come up with another plan. You start going through the Bible looking for great examples of parents, and they are few and far between.
Pretty dysfunctional families in the Bible, which is good news for us because they survived. God loved them. So if we're dysfunctional, at least maybe we've got a shot too.
Yeah.
Right? Got
Yeah.
a chance. Maybe a small one, but we got a chance, right?
Look at poor David. I mean, a man after God's own heart, very definitely a family man who raised some of the most messed up kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of his sons tried to kill him just because he wanted to be king. Another one of the sons raped one of his daughters. Then the first son that wanted to kill him killed the other son. And then another son thought he was going to be king, and then when he didn't become king, couldn't follow the rules to keep his life and got killed by the youngest son. Well, that's a pretty poor end to David's family. Yeah, so you start looking through the Bible at the examples of the good parents, and you keep finding things like you find with David. Even Moses' family, Moses, this great, awesome man of God, his son we don't hear much about. His grandson, who was a Levite, who was of the tribe of the priests, not the high priest, that was Aaron's family, but still the tribe of the priests, at one point was offered a job by one of the clans in Israel that said, we have found this idol from these Canaanites that we took it away from, and we're going to go up north and establish our own country, and we're going to have our own God, and we need our own priest. Will you be our priest? So he took the job. And he went with them up to the northern part of the country, and they created their own religion around their idol, and he was their priest. That was the grandson of Moses. You'd think
he
he'd
had
know
a hard
better.
time controlling all those people. But you know, here's a question. See if I can stump you. You ready? Who was the first parent in the Bible? Oh, who? Eve? So Adam and Eve? Who? God. Right, good job. God was the first one. And
Yeah.
God's the one we're going to follow, right? That's our best example?
I thought most of you'd have trouble with that one.
Yeah. Okay. So the last question.
Who was the worst parent in the Bible? King Saul. Why?
Why?
Okay. Didn't leave much of a heritage for him, did he? Okay. I could buy that. Anybody want to propose another candidate? Okay, we'll go with Saul.
Well, I would have said, we don't know their names, but I would have said Judas's parents.
Well, that's sad.
I know.
I mean, they raised him up to be a good God-fearing boy, and he followed Jesus around for 3 years.
Yeah.
Weren't they a success up to that point?
I don't know. Were they? Were they responsible for his behavior?
Okay, a question. I'll ask it now, and then we're going to probably end with this same question tonight, but for you to be thinking about. For you to be a successful parent, does that depend upon how your children behave as adults, or does that depend on what you do as a parent? What makes you a successful parent? Okay. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about that later, but that's where I would have gone. Okay. The heart of what we wanted to look at were what are some characteristics of a parent? I want you to think about the best parents you know of. Your parent, somebody else's, your own behavior when you're being excellent. What are the characteristics of an excellent parent? Okay, self-control, caring, loving.
Caring, loving.
We need a whiteboard. This is great.
Patience. Thought I heard something over here. Discipline.
Someone who, whether kids are either scared or excited, both, you're the one they want to go.
Okay. Somebody that's really important in the kid's life.
Supportive? Okay. So
You are
good
doing great.
listener? Selfless. Someone they can depend on. All the fruits of the Spirit. Right?
Okay.
So yeah, unconditional love.
Okay, so there's a difference between unconditional love and unconditional approval.
In other words, I can love you, but I don't have to like what you did. Is that what you were, okay, trying to say there? Yeah. Yeah, each of these characteristics are things that we look for. Alan and I doing counseling. When I have a parent group come in, mom and dad, and they're sitting down, and they come in because they have a child with a problem. It could be anything. You know, before I really work with the children, what I want to know is, what about you? What about you as a parent? Are you being supportive? Well, you're there, which usually is an indicator you care enough to at least be seeking help along the way. Are you there because you care? Are you there because you're afraid somebody will tell if you don't come? Are you there because you're concerned about the problem, or you're embarrassed by your child? Are you there? There's lots of things that I am looking at when you come into my office, because I want to know, before I start with that child, what's the foundation of their home? What are those parents like? What is their character?
Okay, let's look at the other side as we're trying to describe what a parent is. What are characteristics of a bad parent? Okay, selfish. Pardon?
Wrath, anger, yeah.
Okay. Absent. Yeah.
And they can be there and still be absent.
Yeah.
They may fill a spot, but that doesn't mean they fill a spot in someone's heart. What about neglectful? Judgmental? It's not that we don't need to help our children learn to value judgment, but we don't need to be judgmental in the process. When we got married, a very long time ago now, we were just babies, really. I mean, we're 19. When we got married, I came from one kind of household, and he came from another. I came from a very wild, lots of kids, lots of noise, lots of confusion household. My parents had been divorced, both parents had remarried. I came from a very unusual family. Alan, on the other hand, came from, describe your family.
Well, I had my mom and my dad and my brother. It was the four of us. And my brother and I fought like a lot of kids do, unless somebody in the neighborhood jumped on one of us, and then we both ganged up on him. My mom could get loud. My mom definitely believed in spanking. I think that's the primary way she took her frustration out. My dad was very quiet. The only time I ever remember him raising his voice is when he thought one of us was in danger of imminent death, which happened fairly often. And my brother and I, we were all boys. We tried things. Like to see how high you could climb in a tree. I had the record in the neighborhood. No kid could climb higher than me. like I never got down. I thought it was the normal family. And it wasn't until I was an adult I found out that was a really unusual family. Most the people I ran into hadn't grown up in something like that.
Alan grew up in a very strong Christian family. They didn't miss a service. They were there all the time, very active at church. I grew up in a Christian home, but I grew up in 3 different homes, so that four different homes. So that made for that being kind of an iffy thing. That's why I said it that way. I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters. That whole and half and step stuff. The first time he came knocking on our door to pick me up for a date, I was sure they would scare him off.
Oh, it was a sight. I wasn't completely sure I was at the right house. It was dark and I couldn't read the numbers, but I thought that was the right house. And I go up and it was during the summer and the front door was wide open, just a screen door on the front. And I rang the doorbell and I heard all these kids in there. Who is it? Who is it? And she yelled something, so I knew it was probably the right house. And then this little girl comes running up to the door, and another one just a head taller comes running up and plasters her against the screen. And then this boy, a head taller, comes running and plasters him against the screen. And then this really tall guy, bigger than me, comes running and smashes them all up to the screen. They all have their face there saying, I want to see him, I want to see him. One of the bravest things I did was not turn around and leave. That was too many kids for me.
Yeah, that was 4 out of the 5. The oldest brother had already gone off to the Marines, but he got to, in one fell swoop, see 4 out of the 5 of us at that house. Yeah, he was brave. He hung around for a while. Okay, I tell you all of that because I knew what I wanted to be from the time I was 12. I wanted to be a mama, and I wanted to be a wife. And I had ideas about how to parent, even at 12. And a lot of those were based off of what I didn't want because of what I had. But I had some good stuff in all of that too. Lots of good family traditions, lots of good activities, and some good advice throughout that time. There were things I wanted. So when we started dating, when we decided to get married, I had expectations of what parenting would look like. He grew up in a different kind of home, but there was still discipline there. There was still parenting there. So he came into our marriage knowing what kind of parent he thought he would be.
Yeah, but I hadn't really thought about it.
I know, because you were a guy.
Yeah,
Guys don't think about that until it's like, oh, I got this baby. Now what do we do with it? Right?
one of the questions I'm going to ask at the second part of tonight is, why did you choose to have children? Now, I'll tell you now my answer. I chose to have children because she said, we've been married long enough, it's time to have kids. Okay. Had no clue what I was getting into. I trusted her. But once I found out she was expecting, I picked up a book on parenting, and then I went to a seminar on parenting. About 6 months later, went to another one right before the baby was born. And about twice a year, I'd go to some kind of a seminar, and we read a lot of books on parenting.
Did.
Because I didn't have any confidence at all in myself as a parent. But that was okay. I figured she'd do most of it. And when they're babies, that's kind of true. You know, I learned how to change diapers. I became very skilled at dealing with a colicky baby. And I still am. So if you have one, and it's around church time, I don't mind taking care of it, but I am not doing the late night stuff anymore. I have paid my dues. I might do it with a grandkid. I think I have done it with grandkids, but other than that, you know, I'll just do the easy daytime, and I'll show you how to take a colicky kid and get them okay for a few minutes,
For a few minutes.
which is the best you can do with a poor little colicky kid.
So when we started talking about being parents, we had to come to some decisions. We had to start looking at what kind of parent each of us wanted to be and what we didn't want to be. And most of you here, because you've already got kids, at some point came to some sort of conclusions about being a parent. And everyone in here, I know especially the women, at some point decided what kind of mama you wanted to be. And all of us could have different answers, but we all came up to a decision. And once most men decide they're going to be parents, do they come up with a decision about what kind of parent they want to be? Or are they just still expecting us to tell them?
It's a good question. What do y'all think? Guys, how'd you figure out what kind of parent you wanted to be? Or have you yet?
Oh, they're all frowning. It's the hard
They're
question.
thinking, yeah.
She already said, we don't think about stuff like that.
You didn't think about being a parent until you had to be a parent, right? But now you're a parent. What kind of parent did you want to be when you knew Sean was coming along?
Me personally, I was blessed with a good example. If I could pull off what was modeled for me, I would be good.
Okay.
I realize that's not normal.
So what he said was he had a good biblical example. So he's hoping he can do that. If he could pull it off, he feels like he would do good. Do you have your hand up, Randy? You sure? Could have sworn I saw a hand. Yes, ma'am. Huh? We have 3, all grown, all married. We have 8 grandchildren. That's the most important number. All 3 of our kids at this moment are in good marriages. That could, change tomorrow, but right now they're all good. Yeah.
Andy.
A lot of parents, when they think about what kind of parent they're going to be, they think about if their parents lack in one area, they're going to fix that.
Mhm.
And they may make new mistakes, but they may fix that one area, be a better parent in that one area that their parents weren't.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth there. What Andy said was he believes most parents, what they really think of is the one area or so where they feel like their parents messed up, and they're going to fix that. I think that fits a lot of people.
I also imagine parenting perfect children. But I have human children.
That's a mouthful right there.
Yeah.
And, I imagine this perfect scenario, and Disney birds tweeting in the background and all of this stuff. And, having children made me different because I had to change.
Mhm.
Okay, so what you said was you had a set idea of your imagine was that it was going to be perfect. That you would be perfect, the kids would be perfect, everything would, yeah. And then when they came along and you had, as I love the way you said it, human children, you had real life and you discovered, oh, well, we need to make some adjustments here. So the first adjustment was you. You changed. You decided you needed to do something different. Yeah.
That's actually a big problem many parents have. Probably most of them that have expectations that are unrealistic. We're going to do some talk tomorrow night, and the second part of tomorrow night about what's a normal, what's a realistic expectation. Because perfect children, and those of you that still have that expectation, you are just frustrating yourself and setting yourself up to be unfair to your children. Because perfect does not exist in a corrupted world.
Right.
And we lived in a corrupted world. And if you are able to be absolutely perfect yourself, you cannot protect your children from all of the imperfect influences they'll have. But if you haven't figured it out yet, you're not perfect.
And we're sorry if we just busted your bubble.
And so since you're not perfect, it is absolutely impossible for you to rear perfect children. But you can raise excellent children.
Yeah.
And I think that's a realistic goal. Raise excellent children. Raise children that are above average. Raise children that you can be proud of, and everybody that cares about your family can be proud of them. That's realistic. Not easy, but it's realistic.
So tonight, this afternoon, we did the Father's Day dinner at the house. Alan, got to grill because men love to grill, and that's what he wanted to do for Father's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So he cooked for us. And so afterwards, I asked our oldest daughter and her husband, Heather and Graham, said, okay, so if you were in here tonight, if you were going to be in there tonight, and you were this mom and dad of that 3 or 4 or 5-year-old, what's the one thing you wish somebody had said to you? Their kids are teenagers. What's the one thing you wish somebody had said to you? First thing out of Heather's mouth was that it's going to be okay. You will survive it. They will survive it for the most part. And it will be okay. You're going to move past this stage. You will have sleep again. You will get to go a whole night. Matter of fact, that first night you sleep all night, you're going to wake up in a panic. Because you're going to think, who died? Why didn't I get, awakened? But that was the first thing. The second thing was, excuse me, that first child, they wouldn't have been quite so hard on. They wouldn't have had so many great expectations on that first child because they learned, oh, it's going to be okay. And they wouldn't have put quite so much on that. They gave me a few other things, but that was, she said, the number one answer. Graham said, when I said, Graham, what do you think? He said what she said. So, same thing. So that's what we want to give you tonight. There's hope. If you got little ones, there's hope. They do get bigger. You will get sleep. I'll tell you when, because we still don't get sleep. Oh, that just could be because we're old now. Not having anything to do with kids. Okay, how are we doing?
Guidelines for parents.
Oh, we're doing pretty good.
Well, I don't know. They haven't brought any food yet, so I'm starting to worry.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out on it.
We'll give them 15 minutes, and then we'll go hunting them down.
All right, go. Guidelines for parents.
Now, some of these are going to come just out of what y'all were already talking about, characteristics of a good parent. So the guidelines, if you want to become one of these good parents, first one we came up with, be consistent. I mean, even if you mess up, at least consistently mess up in the same way and the kids know what's coming. It's just doing it one way one day and the other way the other day. Your poor kids, they can't learn anything. So be consistent.
It's also one of the hardest things to do, being consistent. And the reason I say that is because they've got those big, beautiful little weepy eyes. Please. And you still have to stick to it. Be consistent. As a teacher, I probably said that more to parents than any one other word. No matter what parenting style you choose, whatever you believe is your discipline format, be consistent every single time.
Now, if you decide it's not working, then change it and be consistent with that one.
Exactly. The second one we said was be humble. Be humble. You want your children to learn to be responsible for themselves, to be able to take ownership of their behavior. That requires you to be humble. because you got to take responsibility for your behavior and be able to say to your kids, I messed up. I'm sorry. I promised something and we didn't get to do it. I'm sorry. I had to say I'm sorry a whole lot.
I had a guy in my office a couple weeks ago who said that he was talking about parenting. He said that one of the things he had learned as an adult that was a total shock to him was that his mama wasn't right all the time. That she actually made mistakes, but she never owned a mistake. She always claimed she was right. And then as an adult, he could look back on it and say, oh, there's lots of times she really wasn't right, but she always had to be right, and the whole rest of the family had to do it her way. And he said, when I have children, I will be able to apologize to my children. It's kind of like Andy was talking about. That was the number one thing he wanted to fix that he didn't see from his mom. And as a 20-something, the number one thing he held against his mom was the fact, and he said, she's still. He can't hardly be around her now because she has to be right all the time. And he's a nice young man, but he's not living his life the way she wants him to. Not in an immoral way, just not the way she wants him to. And he wants to know, how old do I have to be before I get to be right? So this is being humble, not being so, I think it may come from self-conscious. I mean, you don't have any confidence in yourself. And so then you have to claim to the kids that you're right even when you're not. Or maybe it comes out of this selfishness that somebody was talking about with the negative characteristics. And when you're a selfish parent, it's all about you, not about the parent, or not about the children. So be humble.
Humility is one of our characteristics we're supposed to have, right, as a Christian? So it's right up there with it. The next one was, so we split this kind of be loving and show affection. Those are two different things. To me, being loving means that even when your kids mess up, and they will mess up, they do mess up, because they're still learning how to do everything. So they're going to mess up. So you be loving. You still need to correct them. You still need to teach them. You still need to do all your stuff, but you can do it in love. Not in, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, you got to do it my way, and you got to do it right, and you're never going to get it right unless I say it's right. That's the boss. That's not love. So we got to love them, and we've got to show them that kind of love, because there's going to come a day in their life they're going to need to show that same kind of love to their kids, to their friends, to their spouse. So they need to know what it means to be loving. You want to add on to that?
Tag on to that right there. One of the things you do not think about when you're raising children, but it'd be useful to think about, is you're raising your grandchildren's parents. And for those of you that don't have grandchildren yet, they're way better than children. Just way better than children. So if you like your kids, you're going to like this way better. And if you don't like your kids, you're still probably going to like your grandkids. Yeah, they're pretty good. But what I wanted to run from there to was also the importance of affection. Not just truly loving your children, which means you will be sacrificial for your children. You will be there for them. But also be willing to soothe your kids and comfort your kids and give your kids signs of the fact that you really believe in them. You think they're important. I've read some really lousy parenting books over the years, some of which were very popular. I will agree with you on that one. The idea that I've seen in more than one book that it is really important with a child beginning around 6 months of age that you let them learn to comfort themselves. You let them learn to soothe themselves. You let them cry plenty by themselves. I actually haven't seen any scientific studies that support that. I think that comes from somebody that didn't like messing with crying kids and had the patience to put up with listening to it.
I tell mine, it's good.
Mhm.
Cry, you know.
Crying's fine. Crying is, especially for a little one, great exercise for the lungs. Yeah, they're going to have less problems. So let them cry, but also soothe them. Pick them up, hold them, carry them around. Let them know that, they're cared for. Because about half these kids, as soon as they can walk, they don't want to be held anymore. So you're not going to have a long time to hold your children, about half of them anyway. But there's nothing wrong with holding them. And then when they are independent and they can do it themselves and they fall out of the tree and they run to you, pick them up and hold them and comfort them. My mom was a tough mom. But some of my earliest memories are of times when I did something that didn't go the way I thought as a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old that it would go, and I ended up badly hurt. And my mom would go from this strict disciplinarian to this very loving person quickly. And some of the greatest amounts of affection I got from my mom was during those times when I was hurt. And so later on, as a teenager and as a young adult, when she's telling me how I'm going to live my life, and I wasn't going to live it the way she was telling me to, but I had patience with her because there was many times she's in my face yelling at me, and in my head was that time when I was 3 and I'd crushed my foot, and she was soothing me, and she was bathing it in hot water and gave me a cookie when I wasn't allowed a cookie that time of day. I could remember things like that. Be willing to show affection to your children. There will come a point later in their life when that may be all that keeps them from blowing up at you.
And he had 13 stitches right here before he was 5 in different places all over him. So he's not joking when he says he messed himself up.
But I don't remember most of those. I was like 2 or so.
They had a round coffee table, and she said it didn't matter where he started falling in the house, he hit that coffee table. But they were really glad that it was round, because he probably would have put an eye out if he had had a corner to fall on. They still have that round coffee table. Mm-hmm. Our kids have hit it too. They didn't need stitches for anything, but they've hit it too. Okay, so one of the things I really want you guys to hear is that there's a difference between loving your children and showing affection, but affection is very important. I can't tell you how many kids, 10 and younger, who come into my office and they don't like to be hugged. And they weren't molested or any, they just, I said, well, at home, do you hug on each other? No. Well, when you go to bed at night, does mom or dad no. See, that bothers me. I don't mean you have to be all over each other, but if your child doesn't know touch well, they're missing something that's important, and you are too. My dad, if he got anywhere near you, he's a patting on you somewhere. If you sat down beside him, he patted on your leg. He was always patting on you. He didn't hug me a whole lot, but he was always patting on me. I knew he loved me. Even though he may yell and scream at me, he loved me because he was always patting on me, always showing affection in the oddest way. I'm a patter too. If you get too close to me, you might get a pat from me too. So, all right. So let's hit that one. That one's really important. Mm-hmm. Being intentional. And then I'll do the last one.
Okay. Intentional, and we're going to talk a lot more about that after the break. Intentional means that as a parent, you're choosing to be a parent. You're not just living life with kids in it. You're actually alert to the fact that you have an important role in their life. You have a purpose in their life, and that every single thing you do affects them. And some of the things that will affect them the most are the things you're pretty much unaware of. My dad apologized to me when I was a young dad myself and was talking about parenting. And he said he just worked too many hours when I was little and growing up, and he was sorry that he wasn't around for me. Now, I knew he worked a lot of hours. But my dad, when he was around, was there. He was present. So I probably got more time with my dad than most of my friends whose dads only worked 40 hours a week. Because their dads were watching the football game, or their dads were out playing golf, or their dads were doing something else. My dad, if he was off work, he was doing something with the family. So that meant a lot to me. But a lot of these lectures he gave me, I don't remember them. You know, as soon as he got disappointed in me, I'm sitting there thinking, boy, I'm not going to do that again. I wished he'd shut up. I wished he'd go away. You know, I'm not listening to what he's saying. What he said that I remembered, that I still think of, he loved to go on walks. He'd take my brother and I with him walking. We might be walking around the block. We might be walking through the woods. But he was constantly finding places to go walking and hiking, and he'd talk the whole time. And a lot of it, he was just thinking out loud. And I was soaking it up. Much of what I learned about the way a man thinks about God, I learned from him on those walks. Not from any devotional he had around the house, but on those walks. A lot of what I learned from him about what it means to treat other people, I didn't learn when I messed up and he lectured me. I learned it on those walks when he was just thinking and talking about things. He didn't realize how much parenting he was doing at that point. They did a lot. Apparently, I did the same thing with my kids. My son sent me this really nice little email today. My son's a writer, so that's how he prefers to express himself. So he wrote this nice little thing about a memory he had when he was about 7.
Am I going to cry?
Yeah, you might want to close your ears. He said that every single time he goes to fill his car up with gas, he has the same memory. When he was about 7, and I don't remember this at all, but I mean, it makes sense. He had all the details right, which is why I think it's important to know you're parenting all the time. He was taking karate along with some of his buddies at church. Thursday nights, they were going to karate. And I'd hauled him to karate. And in his email, he said he remembers me hauling him around in that decrepit old truck. I loved that truck. I was going to give it to him, except it died first. Now I'm glad I didn't give it to him if he thought it was a decrepit old truck. And he said we'd always, after karate, go by the gas station, and I showed him how to pump gas. Now, I don't remember doing that, but he said at 7 is when he started pumping gas, and I showed him how to do it. And it was his job to pump gas. And if he'd fill that truck up with gas, we'd go in to the gas station, and I'd buy him either a Dr. Pepper or a donut. Now, that gas station had the best donuts probably in the state. We called it the Texaco Donut Shop. But they had awesome donuts. He got one or the other. Didn't get both. And he said he still, every time he goes to fill his car up with gas, has this craving for a Dr. Pepper and a donut.
That's that weight problem he has.
So he said he was thinking about that and realized that was typical of many times when I treated him like an adult when he was just a child, and I started setting adult expectations for him. There's a lot of things I did intentionally to try to raise him. That might have been one of them, but I don't remember it. But he does. That's going to be true with your children. They're going to remember a whole lot of things you don't remember. So as best you can in the hustle and bustle of life, try to be intentional with your parenting. Try not to let getting them fed be more important than taking care of them. Getting them fed is just one way of taking care of them. Or getting them to school, getting them dressed, getting them to bed. I mean, all the different struggles that you have with children. That's normal, that's life. What we're supposed to be doing is guiding them. And we're going to talk more about that in the second half.
Okay, we're going to do this last thing and then we'll take a break. So,
Assuming there's food.
I think don't panic. I saw the people go by with the Kool-Aid.
I saw a herd of locusts go by out there, and I think they ate it all.
Okay. So the last one we're going to do really quick is self-care. A lot of times in my office, the young mamas I'm talking to who are sitting there saying, I'm the worst mom in the world, and I'm so tired. And I said, you can't pour water from an empty vessel. If it's empty, there isn't anything coming out of it. So if you haven't taken care of yourself, if you, mamas and daddies both, haven't taken care of yourself, you can't take care of others. It's not selfish. Jesus did it. If you were in here this morning for the class, Alan even read it right there, right out of Luke 5. Jesus sought time by himself. He went off by himself to take care of self. You have to get a little rest. You have to get a little food. You have to get a little bath once in a while. You have to take care of self. And if that means you trade off with somebody else, then trade off. You can't lose who you are and become this thing called a parent and forget self, because then you're of no use to your family. That expression, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Well, mama has to take care of self, and mamas give up a lot, too much sometimes. I can remember many a time being mad at Alan. Well, he gets to go off places, and he gets to go do stuff, but he isn't coming around here doing it. Because he had the smarts to take care of self. And whenever I would gripe at him, he'd say, well, why don't you? Well, go take a nap. Well, go do this, or go. Well, who's going to do? I don't know. Well, what he meant was, I'm not, but it'll be here when you come back from whatever it is you're going to do. He's gotten a lot better now that the kids are gone. He helps a lot. He helped a lot with the kids.
I helped a lot.
He
with
helped
the
a
kids.
lot. He helped a lot more than my dad did, for sure. That's what you have to do. You have to take care of each other, but you have to find time to take care of self, okay? If you don't, nobody else is going to.
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
Now, dads. The people that are worst at this are moms. What this means to you is, number one, you need to be alert to encouraging your children's mom to take care of herself, which means you may need to go take care of the kids so she can take care of herself. That's not take care of the kids so she can go clean the house. That's so she can go take care of herself. Encourage her to do that, because women are slow to think about self. But also, dads, it's common for dads to struggle with anger and to release it at times upon their family. And I know a lot of dads, that's one of the things they most regret about their parenting. It's when they lose their temper and they yell at their kids, or they may be too strict in the way they discipline their kids. When you're most at risk of that is when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you're not feeling good. Tired, hungry, and hurt. Think of those things. That's when you're at risk. And if you realize you're tired, it's been a long day. I worked late. I didn't get a good night's sleep. I had to miss a meal or two. Okay, you're at high risk of anger. Protect the people around you. So you have to take care of yourself too. Eat. Sleep. When you're hurt, do what you have to for the hurt, but just know I'm going to have to take it slow around my family because I'm not at my best. And that way you don't have things you have to apologize for and live with regret. Do we need to check with them or just turn everybody loose?
We're going to turn them loose. We're going to go figure out where we have snap, okay? So we're
Yeah.
going to take,
10 minutes.
about 10 minutes, okay? And
And then we're going to really rush through the second part. Because they're going to bring all those kids back in here and do other stuff in a little bit.
Yeah.
In which case,